I'm Jim Check. You're watching Now Media with me, Lindsay Richholt. Hi, Lindsay. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
You've got a story to share here. It's more of a desperate plea for help here as time is running out. Maybe tell us a little bit about your story, kind of give us the background.
Sure. And I'd just like to say it's a desperate plea for myself, but also for many others struggling with my similar disease in Canada. So about 18 years ago, I was diagnosed with autoimmune hepatitis and cirrhosis. My autoimmune system sees my liver as a foreign entity and attacks it. At that time, I was told I would one day need a liver transplant. And that given my young age, my healthy lifestyle, and the fact that I, have a liver disease from an autoimmune disease, not alcohol, that I would be prioritized. I would skyrocket to the top of the priority list. In 2024, that time came. My quality of life significantly declined. I'm on the last line of defense for medication that they can give me to treat my disease. So I was referred to BC Transplant, and I was activated on their liver wait list in December. Right now I've got no quality of life. I haven't been able to work in over a year. I can't drive. I need 24-hour care. I have extreme fatigue and drowsiness, and lots of other symptoms and side effects from my illness. I'm still waiting for a liver, but the problem we're having is BC Transplant prioritizes those on the liver wait list by the MELD score. So it determines, how healthy you are, how long you have till death, and that prioritizes who gets the liver transplant next. The problem for me is that the MELD score does not factor in a lot of the complications and symptoms patients suffer through with autoimmune hepatitis. So while my doctor and a doctor who saw me at the hospital have indicated my timeline is only about 6 months, I'm very, very low priority with BC Transplant for the MELD score. Several doctors from Kelowna here and the hospital did reach out to have what's called exception points added to my MELD score, and that was denied. So then we've also done a desperate plea. My loved ones did a desperate plea for a live donor, but we've been blocked at every turn with BC Transplant with that as well, unfortunately. We had 50 people who came forward to donate a liver for this life-saving transplant for me, and they were rejected due to either being from a different province or not being close enough of a friend. BC Transplant would only allow close friends, family, and they must be in BC. Testing also takes 2 to 3 months, and I don't have a lot of time. And BC Transplant will only test 3 to 5 candidates at a time, but studies show 1 in 6 on average are only or turn out to only be true candidates. So we're having a lot of barriers and a lot of struggles. We've made several pleas to BC Transplant, but we keep getting told that we're not the only ones struggling. This is just how it is. It's been like this for 20 years and it's probably not going to change. So while I advocate for myself, I really advocate for a change in the way we prioritize people with liver disease from autoimmune hepatitis or other autoimmune diseases. It is unfortunate that, someone who's much older that needs a liver from alcohol use is getting a liver before myself. Not that I'm more deserving than anyone else. I just think we really need to examine the way we are prioritizing and looking at these. And we can't, as patients, we can't just be a number with a score tied to it. We really need our individual cases and our complications looked at.
I understand from the information that you sent in that it is a little bit different in Alberta and Ontario.
Yeah, they're testing for live donors. They can do it in a week. They don't need to be a family or close friend. They'll test anyone from anywhere in the world who's willing to donate a liver to you.
Yeah, so I mean that timeline for the BC saying they can only test a couple of people every 2 to 3 months, you run out of time in a hurry that way if it doesn't work out perfect in the first test.
That's correct.
So I guess the question is are you able to go to Alberta and do this and then take those results back to BC here, or?
No. Well, the people who are testing for live donation can do some of their testing in their province. That's since we've gone to the media and my family written in stories. BC Transplant is now allowing some out of province testing, so we're trying to get that going. But testing is still at 2 to 3 months, with only testing 3 to 5 at a time, and my time is limited.
Right. But if you say in Alberta that testing can be accelerated, is that, but then again, it's just close friends and relatives then.
Yeah, the testing in Alberta for Alberta citizens and their list can be expedited, but BC is not expediting or rushing any tests.
Can British
So
Columbians
if they
go?
send the tests that they need done to Alberta
Yeah.
and the individual goes down there, they're not expedited in any way.
Can British Columbians go to Alberta to get tested and the results be sent back here?
Yes, they can. But no, if they're in BC as a resident BC, they have to be tested here.
So is anybody communicating with you right now from BC Transplant or the health authorities at all?
We're getting limited communication from BC Transplant. My family, my friends, myself, we continue to write letters to contact. But all we've been told so far is this is just how it is. I'm not the only one struggling with this. And that they absolutely won't be changing my MELD score.
Yeah, and I've seen some of the letters too. You've had letters from doctors asking for exceptions and that, but still nothing.
Yeah, 2 doctors have written in, my GI doctor as well as a doctor who saw me in the hospital, and they just confirmed that I'm much more clinically ill than my MELD score indicates, and that I need a transplant sooner than later. That went into BC Transplant, and we didn't receive any response. And then after a couple follow-ups, they let us know that they weren't adding any exception points to my MELD score, even with the doctors advocating for me.
So at this point, you have a lot of people that are willing to do a live transplant with you, and it's just the holdup in the testing that seems to be holding that back.
Correct. Yeah. We've got limited timeline, and we've got a lot of restrictions and barriers.
And then what is the timeline right now that you've been given?
So, well, no one can say for sure. In April, I was in the hospital for complications. I have diabetes from the prednisone I'm on used to treat my disease, and also was having issues with ascites, fluid buildup in my abdomen, and hepatic encephalopathy, so brain fog, confusion. And when I was in the hospital, then the doctors estimated I only had about 6 months left if things continued the way they are.
Yeah, so time is of the essence then.
That's
Is
right.
there anything that people listening can do for you?
Right now, we're asking people to share my story. We're taking this forward to MLAs, to the media. We're asking anyone to share, or if you want to write a letter in to BC Transplant, that would be great as well. It's really wanting to see a change to this process that hasn't changed in many years. And there are people who are slipping through the cracks, people like me slipping through the cracks of this broken process. So while I really, am pleading for myself, it's also all the other people in Canada, and especially in BC here, that suffer from these diseases, and there's a lot more of them that also are slipping through the cracks of the liver wait list.
Well, we will reach out to BC Transplant as well as Alberta to see why the systems are different and why they're not aligned, and why it seems to be faster in Alberta to get results, obviously in time-sensitive areas like this where life is on the line, that you would think that if there's a better system, then they would adopt it.
That's right. That's right. And, it's all a little different across the provinces. But these are life saving surgeries. And I would like to see that we could come together. And if it's working in one province, we should be able to make it work in our own.
Like for sure, you're not only advocating for yourself, but anybody else that's going through something similar is probably facing similar roadblocks and hurdles that they have to go through. And obviously family members, it's tough to understand when, a loved one is facing a crisis like this when you're just told that you're basically a number, that you have to be patient.
That's right. That's correct. I have a 13-year-old son who sees me getting sicker every day and doesn't understand why I'm not getting the surgery I need to save my life. And that's a tough conversation. And I want to help others going forward.
Yeah, like I said, we're going to reach out to BC Transplant. We're going to ask that question, and we're going to also reach out to Alberta to see how they can do it in a different time frame than BC here, and then maybe perhaps through your story things get changed.
Wonderful, thank you. That's what we're hoping for.
Is there anything else you'd like to add today?
I think that's it for now, as long as my brain has remembered everything. But I think that's it, and just appreciate you having me on to share my story.
We do thank you, Lindsay, and we wish you the best of luck. And like I said, we will do our part there. We will reach out to BC Transplant to try and get some answers, and we'll also reach out to Alberta and see how their system is different, and in Ontario for that matter, and why we wouldn't adopt it here if we should be building, like one healthcare system across this nation.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much.
And we thank you for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.